And then there were two, down to the final week of the short but eventful season of Canadian university football, and we have two teams coming off dominating performances in their respective bowl games. With a recap of that and much more, what do you have for us, Ryan?
Well, Jimmy, I've got Montreal and I've got Guelph. It's the Mitchell Bowl, and it was held at Alumni Stadium, a place that the Griffins have been very tough to beat at for quite some time. But winning on the road in hostile environments is nothing new to the Carabin, who came into this one hot off a last-second win in the nastiest environment in the league. That, of course, Pep Stadium in Laval. The winner in this one would be returning to that very stadium in just 1 week to play for all those marbles. Just who would it be? To Guelph we go to find out. Montreal coming in as reigning champs, and they were all business before kickoff, having been in the same spot just 1 year ago, while the Griffins were looking to make their first Vanier Cup appearance since 1984. Montreal QB Gabriel Cousineau got some help from the run game early on. Late in the first Q, Guillaume Paquette takes the leather, and he takes it for a jaunt. That is a gain of 19 yards, and just 2 plays later, Sean Thomas Erlington hauls in this Gabriel Cousineau pass, hits the sideline, and look out! Thomas Erlington gets up close and personal with the cameraman, earning his dollars on that one. That brought Montreal inside Guelph's 40-yard line. A few plays later, the first points of the day go through the uprights. David Deschamps in for the bench. Louis-Philippe Simoneau connects from 27 yards out. MTL up 3-0. Second Q, Carabin up 6-blank. Thomas Erlington scores from 2 yards out to cap off a 6-play, 64-yard drive. Montreal's lead grows to 13. Under a minute and a half to go in the half. Cousineau back in the Griffins' red zone. Fires this dart to Philippe Onchil. That's a 9-yard major, and it's 20-blank for the Bleu et Blanc. Cousineau is fired up, and rightfully so, as Montreal goes into Guelph and takes this one with ease, stomping the Griffins 25-10. Defensive lineman Junior Luke, yes, the same guy that blocked Laval, game-winning field goal attempt in the Dunsmore Cup last week, was named the game's MVP, recording a sack and a pick in the game. Montreal wins the Mitchell Bowl, but refuse to hoist the trophy. Don't know if I agree with the new tradition. So for a consecutive year, though, the Carabin have punched their ticket to the Vanier Cup. However, just who would they be facing this time around? Will it be the upstart UBC Thunderbirds, who after a 2-6 season last year now find themselves in the national semifinals just 1 year later? Or would it be the hometown St. FX X-Men, who, like the T-Birds, hadn't been in a national semifinal since the mid-90s? To Antigonish we go to find out. T-Birds head coach Blake Nill hoping to earn a berth in the Vanier in just his first season as the bench boss of the program. Early first Q, Boise State transfer Taylor Loeffler takes this freebie of a pick, and he goes for a run. Loeffler picks up 31 yards, taking the pigskin to the X26, where they leave it up to the one they call Banger. Brandon Deschamps rushes the ball on 5 consecutive plays before capping off the drive with this 1-yard major. UBC leads 9-1 after 1. Second Q, and the rain picks up, as do the Birds. They're used to it out in Vancouver. QB Michael O'Connor airs one out. Travell Pinto comes down with it. That's a 39-yard pickup, putting the visitors inside the X10. Very next play, O'Connor on the run finds Pinto once again. That's a 9-yard pass and score, which grows the Thunderbirds' lead to 16-1 at the break. They would add 20 more points en route to a 36-9 win, taking the Uteck Bowl while earning the school's first Vanier Cup appearance since 1997. Deschamps was named the game's MVP, racking up 128 yards on 20 carries with 1 major. The UBC D did its part as well, forcing 5 fumbles, resulting in 4 turnovers. The secondary also picked ex-QB Tavon Cook 3 times, but the most impressive stat has to be holding AUS MVP Ashton Dixon to just 52 yards on 18 carries. So the 51st Vanier Cup is set, and if you had picked the T-Birds to be in this game at the start of the year, well, I'd like to recruit you to pick my lottery numbers from now on. Montreal and UBC face off this Saturday, November 28th. Kickoff is at 1 p.m. Eastern, live from Quebec City. Catch all the action on Sportsnet or TVA. All right, there you have it, Mr. Mullen. What a weekend it was. Can't wait for the big one this weekend, and rare time I actually throw back to you.
We now welcome, fresh off his call of the Uteck Bowl on TVA Sport 2, fan favorite and grizzled KCU veteran, JP Shoiry. JP, welcome on board.
Glad to be here, Jim.
JP, St. FX went into Laval and were blasted by Laval in the regular season. UBC, after a sloppy start, easily handled those same X-Men in the Uteck. So did that game serve as any constructive preparation for the Thunderbirds coming up against the Montreal Carabin?
Well, UBC is definitely going to face a much tougher opponent in Montreal than they did with X. But, this UBC team is still a really young team. And, I think traveling all across the country, playing, an opponent they haven't played before on their home field was definitely constructive, as Coach Neil trying to cement this group together, looking forward to the Vanier, because they'll have somewhat of a similar experience this weekend, but just against a much better team and a tougher team and a more balanced team. So, a football game is always constructive. It's experience for his young quarterback, experience for everyone, and now they just got to, take it on to the next game.
Close to perfect, dominant, and efficient could describe Montreal's win in Guelph. Was that a surprise to you, that result? And can Montreal actually get better for the Vanier?
You know what? Montreal's been getting better and better every week, and that performance was a bit of a surprise because you'd expect Guelph to give a better challenge, especially at home, for that playoff game. But Montreal right now is playing solid football. They're not turning the ball over. They're dominating the line of scrimmages, both on offense and defense. And their running back is the MVP of the playoffs so far, by a mile. So can they get better? We'll see. We'll see this weekend. But if they just keep playing the way they are playing right now, UBC is going to have a tough challenge this weekend because Montreal right now is close to perfect on offense, and their defense is just making plays at every position. So really impressive win for Montreal against Guelph.
In 2009, when the Rouge et Or were bounced by Queens in the bowl game, the folks in Quebec City responded as a great host with a crowd that was 4,000 over capacity, and they had a lot of enthusiasm as well. How different will it be this time around? I know you're going on the road up there from Montreal. I'm guessing that Montreal will be wearing the black hat in this one with the locals who have held on to their tickets, and Blake Nill, who is pretty good friends with Glenn Constantin, may be the team that picks up the undecided vote. Your thoughts on that?
It's definitely going to be a packed house this weekend. It's the national championship. You're talking about a football-savvy city. They're there to support their team, but they're also there to just watch a good football game. And right now, you got the two best programs, this year in the country facing off, for a national championship. And there's a lot of stories, to this final. You got Blake Nill on the other side. Last time he came, to Quebec, it was, with the Dinos, and obviously, we know the result of that game. So he's coming with somewhat of a redemption himself. And then Montreal, beating Laval 2 years in a row, and now there to win the Vanier is like, you definitely want to be there and you want to see that action unfold. And just like, it's the game, but in Quebec, it's also all about, the happening, and people want to be there. It's the last tailgate of the year. It's going to be a big one. It's a big show. There's the Red Bull crashed ice, after the game. So you can expect a lot of people just to be there. If the weather can be good, people are going to be there, going to attend, going to cheer for football because, that's what we have right now this weekend is Canadian football at its finest. So, it's definitely, it's an exciting weekend for football fans, and, just glad to be a part of it in whatever way we can,
Well, JP, it's nice to have you back. Thanks very much for this. Coming up, X's and Olsen. Stick around. Krown Produce secures produce locally and from around the world for Canadian retailers. Krown Produce is also proud to secure sponsorship of University football on Shaw. Krown Produce, supporting Canadian retailers and Canadian amateur football.
Hey everybody, welcome back to KCU. Now we've seen who will be in this year's Vanier Cup. Now let's hear from a couple Vanier Cup champions themselves. That, of course, Gord Randall and Sean Olsen in this week's edition of X's and Olsen. Thanks, Ryan, and welcome to this season's penultimate edition of X's and Olsen with myself, Gord Randall, and the coach, Sean Olsen. Now, this week we're going to go in a bit of a different direction. We're going to look at the UBC special teams. UBC being arguably the best special teams team in the nation this season, with an excellent kicking specialist and two very dangerous returners in the back. Coach, we're going to look at a couple of big returns they had this season and see what they do really well in the special teams. You know, what really stands out to you there?
Well, you couldn't go the whole season playing Canadian football and not have an X's and O's session about special teams. A huge chunk of the game is won or lost in the special teams battle, and UBC has won the majority of those this year. They have two amazing returners. They run simple but very, very intelligent schemes, and we're going to take a look at a couple of them right here. The first play here is a return from Marcus Davis for a touchdown. He is an explosive athlete. He has the ability to create big plays where the blocking necessarily isn't there. This is not one of those examples. They have blocked a field return to perfection. Let's take a look here. You'll see here, everybody is up close to the line of scrimmage, okay? This forces them to protect. That is a huge part of a return game. If they can't get down the field quickly to corral a returner, then you're going to have space, and that's all you need to create a crease for Marcus Davis. Let's roll this clip forward.
All right, now pause it right there. Now, this ball is being snapped from the right hash mark, which means that the field return is going to be going to this side of the field up here. So you will see every one of UBC's blockers is trying to get what we call field side leverage on the man that he is blocking. In other words, he is going to try and force the Regina man towards the sideline on the near side as we're watching this to make sure that he's got his positioning for the return, which is going to the defense's right. Let's roll forward again.
You'll notice that the two gunners are all, freeze it right there, two gunners are being held up. You got two guys to the field. You can always tell when they devote extra resources to the wide side of the field. Typically means that person is very, very important in controlling the contain. You see the kick here. Kick is massively important when you're talking about return game. If you get a good kick, you have a very, very good chance of getting a good return. The key point here is if the ball's put outside the numbers, chances are a field return will just turn into a boundary return where you're trying to get what you can. You get a good kick here with a good roll. Marcus Davis is able to pick it up, and you'll see what happens. Let's roll it forward. You'll notice Marcus picking the ball up here. Pause it right here. You'll notice that all of these players from the University of Regina are in chase positions. They've been effective in walling them. They've created a crease. Marcus is going to take it down the sidelines now, and then they're going to have one or two large blocks against unsuspecting coverage team players that will spring this for big yardage. Let's roll it forward.
And you will see guys battling all the way up the field. This is a very difficult, high-impact team. You see lots of big collisions, especially once a guy turns the corner. You see some of those peel-back blocks. And then when Marcus Davis gets the corner, you see him, he's just gone. Takes it to the house, 100 or so yards for the touchdown. Big, big run for UBC that really piled up some momentum in that game versus the University of Regina early in the year. Now we're going to see the Robin to Marcus Davis's Batman. This is Travell Pinto. We're going to see a kick return here versus the University of Saskatchewan. Pinto's going to take it right up the gut to the house. Coach, set us up here.
So this is one of Coach Arizzetti, the special teams coordinator's favorite returns. Simple middle return. All it is a trapping scheme up front. He's going to take your interior three guys and try to wall people off the hash marks. You're going to have a loose wedge from the backside, the back three, and then the return man is going to get the ball. If he gets it anywhere inside the numbers, he's got a chance to be off to the races. Let's roll it forward. Deep kick, very returnable, right on the numbers, exactly where you want it. He takes to the field.
Now, Coach, how much of this is superior athletes more than just scheme?
Well, I'd say up until about the 35, 40-yard line, it's scheme. After that, it's about athleticism. Anytime you have a return that goes over 25, 30 yards, usually the last 15 or 20 is all about athleticism. And Pinto is a special athlete.
And I love seeing the small skill guys on this team really working their butts off. Guys like Will Watson, who don't normally get to be the hammer instead of the nail-on guys, really relish their work on this team. And Paul Arizzetti has these guys motivated, which is why they're good for just about one really big return play every game out for them. So keep your eyes peeled when you're watching that Vanier Cup this weekend for something big from the UBC return team. Back to you, Ryan. Thank you. All right, when we come back, Mullen, Randall, and Olsen are back to break down this year's Vanier Cup matchup.
Krown Krown Produce secures produce locally and from around the world for Canadian retailers. Krown Produce is also proud to secure sponsorship of university football on Shaw. Krown Produce, supporting Canadian retailers and Canadian amateur football. Let's break down the championship, and we will not make the mistake that others do comparing positions to positions, but instead we will look at matchup versus matchup. First matchup, the UBC running game against the Montreal run defense.
Well, this is going to be a very interesting matchup. It all comes down to Brandon Deschamps. He is the straw that stirs the drink for the UBC offense. They've averaged 165 yards per game in the playoffs, 3 matchups versus very quality opponents. But where it's going to get tough is that the University of Montreal's defense is only averaging 80 yards against. It's going to be powerhouse versus powerhouse, and I think this is one of the areas that's going to decide the game.
And let's not forget the timely rushing contributions that UBC gets from time to time from both Michael O'Connor and Marcus Davis on the ground. I think those two might be just as important for the Birds in establishing the run this week against a Montreal defense that was the best in the nation on the ground against the run. And one stat that stands out for me about this Carabins defense, they do not have a single guy in the top 50 in tacklers in the nation this year. It is a group effort for them. They rally to the ball. They move around a lot on the front. And UBC's young offensive line is going to have to take another step this week, because I actually thought they looked kind of shaky last week against FX, and they got the job done despite them. I give the advantage to the Montreal defense here for sure.
And I'll give the advantage to the Montreal defense as well. Now let's shift over to the Montreal pass defense versus the UBC passing game.
Well, I don't think that Montreal's seen a passing attack quite like UBC's. There are a lot of run-heavy attacks in the queue, but one thing Montreal does have working in their favor is they are a very opportunistic defense. 13 interceptions this year against a much lower volume of passing attempts than UBC usually attacks you with is a great number, and UBC hasn't been great with the ball the last couple weeks. Another stat that stands out to me here, Montreal has faced the lowest average plays against per team in the country this year. Just 45 offensive plays against per game for Montreal. That is a great number, Coach.
Well, I think you hit on some very good points. The one thing that stands out to me from this matchup is UBC's speed. I know these receivers well, and guys like Ben Cummings, Marcus Davis, Willie Watson, Alex Morrison, and Travell Pinto all are sub 4.5 guys. That speed is going to be tough for the U of M defense to handle. I don't think they've seen it all year, and I expect there's going to be some big plays to exploit in the passing game for UBC. I pick UBC.
And I will go with UBC as well, because I think they'll get back to their short passing game, which was their bread and butter, versus the Calgary Dinos. Now it's time for the Montreal running game versus the UBC front.
So this is a focal point for me in this matchup. I think UBC's run defense has been surprisingly stingy throughout the playoff run. They've faced some serious rushing attacks at the U of M with Jamel Lyles. They've also faced Ashton Dixon, the best that the AUS had to offer. And then you can't forget Mercer Timmis, and they've held up very, very well. They give up about 50 pounds per man on the defensive front, and they have not seen a physical, punishing rusher like Erlington. I think UBC is going to be really challenged to come up big versus that run game, and everything starts with the U of M run game from the Carabins side of things. If they get it going, UBC is in for a long day. I pick the Carabins.
Sean Thomas Erlington is an extremely talented back, and Montreal favors that run-heavy approach. On the UBC side of the ball, it's the same story. They are thin on bodies, and the 3 guys up front, most downs being Boyd Richardson, Dante Vigini, and Connor Griffiths, with maybe the odd appearance from Trey Levy, will be tasked with stopping a big Montreal front that wants to run the ball a lot. Another guy I want to focus on, number 30, the middle linebacker, Dylan Chapdelaine, who has been playing outside of his mind the last couple weeks. I was extremely impressed with him versus St. FX on the defensive side of the ball, and I think this is a bit of a surprise pick. I actually give the edge to UBC here. The way they've been playing and rallying to the ball the last couple weeks has been very impressive to me.
I would have to go with Montreal simply based on power and the way Sean Thomas Erlington has been piling up the yards. We know that there's a low rotation with the UBC Thunderbirds, and those guys up front are nicked. I expect to see a Michael Souls-like effort from Sean Thomas Erlington, and that tells you how old I am. The UBC pass defense versus the Montreal passing game, Gord.
Yeah, on the UBC side, they've been able to drop more linebackers in coverage, and you've been seeing them get more involved in the passing game. We saw Terrell Davis make a couple big plays last weekend. They've also got a couple ball hawks back there. Stavros Katsatonis has been a big playmaker for them, and Taylor Loeffler, probably the best defensive back in the country in terms of a CFL prospect. A guy that matches great athleticism and speed is a guy to watch out for. On the Montreal side of the ball, Gabby Cousineau didn't quite take the step that we expected this year, but he's still got weapons, headlined by Regis Sibasu.
I think the key is going to come down to whether this passing attack of the Caravans actually matters. If they can run the football, then this passing attack can continue to be complementary. Gabby Cousineau, 0 interceptions is his most impressive stat in this playoff run. UBC's pass defense has been massively opportunistic. It has been the linebackers that have been creating most of the turnovers, but without those turnovers, a lot of those playoff wins would be very, very different results, I think. If they can't get turnovers from the Montreal passing game, I think UBC might be in a tough situation. I'm picking the Montreal pass offense to be complementary and to just add enough to that powerful running attack.
Well, I'm going to pick UBC on this one because I really like how physical the linebackers and the secondary has been over the last couple of games. Loeffler is someone to be feared back there, along with Katsatonis and, of course, Terrell Davis. They've been lowering the boom on teams, so I'm going to pick UBC. Now let's go over to special teams. Sean?
Well, special teams, I think this is the battle of the number 1 and the number 2 kicker in the country. I think Menard Briere has been just as outstanding throughout the year as Quinn Van Gelswyk. I think Quinn, I have to give him a slight edge because he's been absolutely automatic on the field goal side of things, and he has been punting the ball outstandingly as far as in his placement mode. That's something that Quinn hasn't always been great with, but he's been putting balls out of bounds inside the 10-yard line, creating long fields, and that could be the difference. And the other thing that you have to take a look at here is UBC's return game. Explosive athletes in Marcus Davis and Travell Pinto returning the ball, and that's something that the Caravan just simply don't seem to have in the return game.
Yeah, these are two teams, very good special teams with very different identities. On the UBC side of the ball, they very much commit to the return game and do a heck of a job with it, and also pair that with an outstanding kicking specialist in Quinn Van Gelswyk. They're an impressive bunch on that side of the ball. On the Montreal side, they get the job done in coverage teams. I don't think they're quite as impressive in the kicking game, but they have a knack for coming up with the big play just when they need it, headlined by the field goal blocks both in the Dunsmore Cup and in last year's Vanier Cup. They have a very stout front and do a great job on the defensive side, so to speak, of the special teams battle. I give the slight edge to UBC here. I think they're more explosive in special teams, but Montreal certainly gets the job done as well.
And I'm going to give a big edge to UBC on this. And one of the reasons is in the early stages of these Vanier Cup games, sometimes both offenses have trouble getting on the rails. And if it turns into a 2-and-out situation, Quinn Van Gelswyk's going to earn you 12 to 15 yards in exchanges every time, and that could put Montreal into a hole early. Okay, now it's off to intangibles. You got an anti-Montreal crowd, perhaps. We got Blake Nils' Vanier losing streak. We've got Montreal and Laval's dressing room. Machocha being more prepared at the national level due to last year. UBC's got momentum. Who's got the edge with intangibles, Mr. Randall?
Now, here's the area where I give a sizable advantage to Montreal. Danny Machocha is a coach who's been there before. He's won not only a Vanier Cup, but also a Grey Cup. This is an experienced team that has obviously been there, having just won this last year. On the UBC side, they're a young bunch, which means that they're confident and not particularly afraid of anything. But I think if things start going against them early on, we're not quite sure how they'll react. And on the Montreal side of the ball, the stat that it stands out for me, over 31 minutes per game they possess the ball for. UBC's got to cut that down. Otherwise, it's going to be a long day for them, and it's going to go by quickly for them. I give the edge to Montreal in this area, Coach.
Well, I think on the coaching side, I think it's a bit of a toss-up. Both these guys have been there before and have had success. I think they're both going to manage an outstanding game. The areas that I'm going to look at here are penalties. UBC has been on an unprecedented run here with penalties. They've managed 15 penalties for their opponents against throughout the course of the playoff run. That's been some very favorable officiating. If they can continue that, that will play a big role. The other area that I'm going to point to is age. UBC's average age is around 19 years of age. The University of Montreal Caravans is around 23. I think that age and experience could come to play in this game. UBC has found a way to avoid those problems throughout the whole playoff run, but if they can't, I think it's going to be advantage Montreal.
And for me, I think it's advantage UBC because they've got nothing but momentum right now. They didn't expect to be here, and all the pressure is really off them going into this big game and this big stage in Quebec. I think Montreal might feel that a little bit. So now it's time to review the board. As you can see, the Montreal defense is going to be dominant over the UBC run game, but it's the other way for the UBC pass game versus Montreal. We have split decisions on Montreal's offense versus UBC's defense in 2 accounts. Special teams, it's UBC all the way. Intangibles, we are split. And so first to Sean with the prediction. You love predictions, don't you?
I love predictions. Coaches always love to predict things ahead of time. I don't think it's going to come down to any of the things that we talked about. I think penalties, I think turnovers, and I think the ability to win the field position battle will be the difference in this game. And UBC has been on an unprecedented run in the playoffs. Their 3 victories against very, very good opponents. They've dominated those 3 areas. And I think if they're going to continue in the Vanier Cup, UBC has a tendency to win Vanier Cups once they get to them. We don't necessarily get to a ton, but when you get there, they seem to win. And I think they're going to come out on top by 7 points. 30-23 is what I got.
So Sean says it's a magical 1997 run. I guess you agree, right?
Not in the least. And it's not like Montreal's been playing scrubs the last 3 games, so I'm not quite sure how that plays into UBC's hands. But I think that intangibles, I can't stress them enough. Montreal, a team that's been here just a year ago. UBC, a team that has, for all intents and purposes, never been there since the Stone Ages, coach. They bring a young team into Peps. And I think that they'll have trouble playing in front of a crowd of this magnitude. They played there in the preseason. It was about a half full house. This time it's going to be different. It's going to be rabid. The crowd's going to be, I think, still in Montreal's favor. And I think that this young UBC team will struggle a bit with that pressure. In order for them to win, they're going to have to stop the run and force Montreal to the air 40 or 50 times. And I just don't see that happening for them. So I'm picking Montreal in something along the lines of a 20-16 scoreline.
Okay, here's a scenario for you. Quinn Van Gilswyk goes 5 for 5 on field goals. Marcus Davis or Travell Pinto returns one to the house. Loeffler and Katsatonis create at least 1 key turnover from impact on receivers. Erlington runs for 185, and Montreal wins by 3 to the despair of everyone in Quebec City wearing red. I'm not even going to predict a score on this one, though. Reminder that we will be here next week to wrap up the season. But for now, let's get out to that championship.